Driving. Melanie and Deanna had been driving for days together. Recently married, the women had been traveling from Florida to California as a long and, surprisingly, stress-free honeymoon. Somewhere in Arizona, or possibly New Mexico, the two had been traveling along for quite some time on a dusty stretch of road. Miles and miles of nothing stretched in front of them as they plowed down the deserted highway, whose number both of them had forgotten. All they knew was that they were headed northwest along it. In the day, they had seen the road stretch with nothing but dust and rock on either side, while ahead of them was a range of short, squat mountains that they intended to cross. Now, after driving for so long, the sun had gone and abandoned the dust, rocks, and mountain to be devoured by near total darkness on a moonless night. Only the smallest bits of starlight illuminated their world. Both talked and let the time pass as they drove. They were in no rush, but slowly they began to wonder, when would this stretch end? We should at least start feeling an incline, shouldn't we? But white line fever sinks in, and you just don't notice it. Besides, they were enjoying their long due, and well-deserved, company as wife and wife. However, as they drove and drove, their highway hypnosis gave away finally. They both saw it, and a dreadful feeling began to seep in and replace the happy and carefree feelings they had felt all along this trip. Every time they noticed it, Melanie would give Deanna's hand a squeeze. A comforting motion to assuage the worry and dread nailed into them each time they looked down, each time they saw it noticeably move down. A terrible feeling as they watched the fuel gauge slowly drop and drop. They had been driving for so long, they should have gotten there. Something was wrong. Did they misjudge the length? Did they not fill up before? Things simply did not add up for the two. And like the inevitable swing of the Reaper's scythe on all our mortal coils, the car began to slow as the gas that had turned to fumes turned to nothing. With a crunch on the gravel ground, the car stopped. Checking both their phones and Deanna's work cell phone, they found not much to their surprise. That signal was non-existent. Not really a shock, as they suffered dead spots often on this drive thus far. So the conversation began as to what to do. Stay in the car or walk forward. A compromise was reached. They would walk forward a bit to see if by some stroke of luck there was something populated close by, or even perhaps a roadside assistance call box. Granted, it was pitch black out, with but a small amount of ambient light. The road was a black stretch sided by oceans of deep purples, blues, and dotted with shadows. It was actually still rather warm outside, and they both felt the fresh air could be good for them. They did their best to make fun of the situation by joking and being playful in order to ignore the possibilities of their unfortunate situation. The two trod for but a few minutes when the car was out of sight. They discussed when they should turn around and go back, and each time they did, the discussion ended with just a little longer, just a little bit further. And so they went on, further and further, until it had snuck up on them. Clouds. Thick, rolling clouds spreading across the sky, blotting out the already feeble starlight in their inky blackness. Go back, "We have to go back," they both agreed as the last bit of star was voided out. But as they walked back towards the car, they realized it was far too late for such a choice, it seemed. Blackness stretched before them, behind them, above them. The only way they even knew that the other was there was by their clasped hands and breathing. "We'll eventually get to the car," they thought. "Just a straight line and we'll get there." But nothing broke up their monotonous pitch-black world for what seemed like forever. Worry, panic, fear, and frustration seeped into their voices. Only the fact that the two women held hands throughout it, knowing that the other was there, kept them from devolving to abject loss and hopelessness. It felt like an eternity. And then, light. A small flicker of light springing to life in short bursts, then finally stabilizing to a constant one. It appeared to be a roadway light, which meant that something was there, or, hopefully, at least something was nearby. The women ran to it, the light bobbing up and down in their sprint towards what felt like a light of salvation. As they got closer, they noticed the night was so dark that the light barely illuminated downwards and didn't even shine on its own post. Even the light on the ground was feeble, showing a glossy black road. They ran regardless to it. If anything, at least they could sit below it until daybreak. They both ran up, and underneath the feeble light they embraced, not even realizing the ground was wet, though it had not rained. They lost themselves in a celebratory and relieved kiss, so relieved that they didn't even mind the strong smell. Suddenly, the light bobbed a bit. They both looked up. Two bulbous, cloudy white eyes were revealed by the moving light. The tongue they were standing on moved. The light went out, and the wives screamed as they held each other as the monstrous jaws they had walked into slammed shut.